I
Well, then
disagree.
you're absolutely illogical and you make no sense because I just gave you statistics. 1 in 4 women will be raped, right? And we know that 90% of the perpetrators of rape are men.
Uh,
That is a
About
statistic.
93%.
I believe
Sorry,
you
it's
if you
even
said
more,
it.
93%.
I don't know about that, but I trust you though.
Since you're on your phone, what you could do right now is slide up if you're on an iPhone, so you can get to the home screen, tap on Safari, and type up the statistics of essay for men versus women.
Age and pronouns,
I
the poor
am
man,
29 and I
TikTok.
am a she/her.
All right, cool. Please tell us what you think about the prompt.
Oh well, I do think that men have a certain level of privilege, but I think Grand was right. I think that women do have more privilege in the Western culture. Well, in the U.S. for sure, than
Oh,
men
you
do.
think
But
so?
Substantiate that claim.
what'd you say?
Substantiate that claim. And
Well,
what metrics do you have to prove that women have more privilege in the United States?
well, I'll give you a privilege that's alluded to women that men don't have. Women don't have to register for the draft in order to vote. That's an exclusively female privilege that men don't have. Now, can you tell me something that is of equivalent, a privilege that men have?
That's
Bodily
interesting.
autonomy.
Wait, hold on. You think that's a privilege? I find that very interesting. Do you know the U.S. Department of Defense back in 2007? They had made a report stating that men on average in combat, where they draw the recruits from when they need to have a draft, they are drafting people for combat oriented positions in the military, and therefore, on average, women score less on PT scores than their male counterparts do. So therefore, they would be considered a detriment on the battlefield, which is why women are not required to sign up for the draft, because on average they'd be less likely to perform at the same level as their male counterparts.
Yeah, but I agree with you,
That's
but
not that's that's
that's
not a
still an inherent
privilege.
privilege.
That's not a privilege.
It is a
Do you know what a
privilege.
privilege is?
Just
Do you know what a
because you're less
privilege is?
capable and you don't have to go doesn't mean you're not privileged to not have to go.
That
It's
would be
a
a
No,
disadvantage.
it's a
because
privilege
you
to
don't
not have to fight
understand
in
what
a
a
war.
privilege is. So
Yes.
can you define privilege,
I
please?
understand what a privilege is at all.
You guys are the ones that got the prompt that says privilege. Hold on, you want me to specifically define privilege for you?
Yes,
Okay,
define
let me.
privilege.
A right,
But
advantage,
you
or
have the
immunity
privilege of being
granted
a
or
man in the
available to a
sense that you are
particular
not
person
going
or
to be
group.
typically targeted for rape and
Hello.
unaliving.
Did you
You
hear
are
me? A
typically
right,
not going to be
advantage.
target for the sex trafficking trade, and you have the safety of walking down the street at night if you so desire.
Women have more privilege than
And you
men,
might
though.
think that, like, oh, well, you know,
Do you want the
I
definition?
could
Y'all
get
asked me
attacked,
for the
but
definition.
you also have an equal fight on your hands if you get attacked by another man, right?
Yeah, but that's due to biology.
So would you not say that men inherently have more privilege based on their biology over women?
The definition of privilege is a
No
special
one was
right,
talking to you,
advantage,
Easy
or
Legend.
immunity
You have not been
granted.
addressed.
Do you
Go
hear me?
ahead, the poor one.
Yeah, it says the definition for privilege is a special right,
Just wanna go look
advantage,
back
or
at the
immunity
definition.
granted or available only to a particular person or group. And that is exclusively a privilege if women do not have to go to war and still have the right to vote without doing so.
Yeah,
And
but
it's a privilege that's
unfortunately,
granted by the government.
women are being raped and unalived. In certain parts of the world, women are literally having their clitoris removed because their only objective is to please a man and have babies. Women have lost the right to bodily autonomy if you want to go closer to home when they're no longer allowed to make choices over their own body. Women are being raped and unalived. There's literally a femicide happening. And in the UK right now, there's a national emergency on violence against women. So you want to compare that.
Well, men make up
Please do.
92% of workplace deaths. Men make up 97% of all war deaths. Men make up like 82% of all homeless. Men have almost no DV shelters. So we can go back and forth in the petty Olympics.
That's also
Everybody has
true.
hardships, but I'm talking about exclusive privileges.
We're talking about no.
I'm talking about
We're talking about
exclusive privileges.
You know what's really funny is y'all want to complain about male patriarchy when y'all started male patriarchy.
I never
No, we
complained
didn't.
about male
You
patriarchy.
are
I'm just
complaining
combating.
about systems that men have put in place
Yeah,
to
no,
benefit men and to oppress women.
No.
So y'all want to be like, oh, you know, men are being drafted. Why is that? Because men have created the narrative that women are not equal to men, so therefore women can God forbid a woman is drafted, right? Because a woman has to carry our babies. So y'all are complaining about systems that men have put in place.
No,
for men.
Air Z was right. We didn't create the narrative. The narrative is biological. You are just less capable of performing at the same rate as a man.
No.
So we
less
give you the
capable.
privilege of not having to do
Hold
so.
on. You're not. It's easy. If you unmute yourself again before you were addressed, you're going to be dropped from the panel. But again, the poor man. That was not that was not the full.
You said they score less on
that I
PTs?
was saying. You're not encompassing the full argument. The statement was that was what the DOT. That's the decision they reached when it comes to like drafting for combat positions. That does not mean that women are completely unable of reaching that level of capability. There have been plenty of women that are combat decorated veterans that excel and are better than a lot of men physically when it comes to things such as combat. I was not saying that women are incapable. I was just saying on average, it is statistically unlikely and unreasonable to expect women on a legal level to be able to perform at the same level as a man. It's just statistically improbable. That was the argument, which is why it's not a privilege. It would be a disprivilege to carry women, to force women to carry that plight at the same level, and society agrees with that interpretation as a whole. And so to just consider that a privilege is delusional.
And also, y'all men are complaining about systems, like I said, that men have created. Y'all men want to uphold the male patriarchy. You want to say, oh, men need to be tough, men can't have emotions. And then, all of these things, while sad, are still a direct, I guess, oh my God, I'm blacking out, are still a direct result from male patriarchy, right? The systems that men have put in place are also hurting men.
Yeah,
right?
I think you're mistaken though, because I'm not complaining about it. I'm saying that it does exist, but I gave you a privilege that women have that men do not have. And I've yet to hear one privilege. I've yet to hear one privilege given back to me.
That in the UK right now, there is a national emergency because of violence against women. In Australia, there has been, and I got to Google this because I don't know the exact statistic, but it's a very high amount, almost 1,000, if I can go off memory, women that have went missing in the last 3 months. Okay. MMIWs. I don't know if you know what that is. It is murdered and missing Indigenous women. Okay.
They keep muting me, y'all. I don't know why, because I haven't even really been talking. I've been letting them finish. But they've yet to answer my question as far as what is a privilege that men have that women do not have. Now they're talking about issues with crime, but men also face issues with crime and disparities in society.
You are not being targeted
She's not
by
giving
men
me a
because
single
you are also a man.
entitlement
Therefore,
that
you
men
have a
receive
privilege.
that women do not receive.
I don't
because it doesn't
understand where the
exist.
disconnect is.
Well, the disconnect is you're talking about statistical crimes when men also have issues with statistical crimes too, and just certain disparities in society.
Okay, you're like completely
both genders have issues with disparities in society.
Definitely not being an active listener.
The poor man. What part of you are you not understanding that there is a difference between objective privileges protected by the law and societal privilege? Do you understand that there's a difference between the two?
Okay, are you talking about societal privileges?
Just answer the question.
Which one are you talking about? I understand the difference.
There's a difference between legal privileges and societal privileges. Nobody inherently has a legal privilege that a law.
Women do have a legal privilege. I just gave it to you.
No, they do not.
That's a legal privilege.
That's a no. And I just explained to you how you were factually incorrect about how that law is interpreted and enforced. And for two, men are allowed to vote even without being registering for the Selective Service Act. What you have to get, the reason why you have to register for the Selective Service Act is to get federal benefits. The reason I know this directly because I was directly impacted by this. So to get my family's Chapter 35 benefits, because both my parents served in the military and went to war, I had to register for that to access those benefits because those are federal benefits that are given to you by the federal government. And the same thing if you were applying to federal Pell Grants in the United States, you would also have to be registered on the Selective Service Act because that is in order to access any federal benefits or to participate in the federal government.
But that makes my point.
And
no,
also,
it does not make your point.
Yes, it does. You're literally talking about privileges that women have that men don't have. If we have to
I also want to go back to what you said about
can I converse with Air, or what are we doing? Are we conversing, or are y'all just talking?
I've literally just told you that all the things you're complaining about are a direct result of male patriarchy, which
Okay,
was
but regardless,
created
that
and
doesn't make the
upheld
point.
by men.
Regardless
It
of who
does
gives
make
the
my
privileges, we're
point.
talking about
That makes
privileges
the
as they
point.
exist, and women have privileges that men do not have.
No,
That's
that's
been
not a privilege.
demonstrated
You
by
don't
your own logic.
understand. No. You don't understand what a privilege is. If men are controlling society and we control and create the rules, we inherently have more privilege over women. We decided to protect women, as regardless of how people feel, if it's like misogynistic in nature now, which I would say it is.
It is.
But
That's silly.
they decided it's not. They decided that they remove the woman's choice in being able to like sign up for the Select the Service Act. There's plenty of patriotic women that I know that would love to be able to sign up, but since the government is protecting them as a protected class, you're viewing it as a privilege as it is in a negative connotation.
Yeah, because
but that's not in the same light as, for
look, I'm
example,
muted again.
having
They
the
just keep
privilege of
muting me, so I
being
can't
treated with
converse.
respect
And
at
then they
your
go on
job,
monologues. This
or
is what
being
happens all the
treated with
time.
respect.
I'll show
On a
another
political
video too,
standpoint.
probably in the
For
beginning of
example,
this
you
video
look
where I
at
get kicked out in
Kamala
like
Harris
2
versus
minutes.
Donald Trump.
But this is what you deal with.
People think Kamala Harris would not be a good leader because she's a woman. Of that, there's plenty of data to back that. That is the Associated Press has posted numbers backing that claim, that when they polled people why they didn't choose Kamala Harris over Donald Trump as a candidate, a lot of people made the claim that they don't think women would make great leaders. So that's also a political aspect that you can point towards, of women. One of the most qualified people in the country to be president was placed under somebody that's realistically, if like the founding fathers were more implicit or explicit,
This dude is
with
chatting.
making it unconstitutional.
We're talking about privileges,
for
inherent privileges
convicted
in
felons to
society.
being the president, he wouldn't have been president. So we're comparing a male. So that's an inherent example of male privilege, like a male convicted felon versus politically a very qualified political woman, a politician for the position of president, being compared, and people thinking the convicted felon is more qualified to be president. That's one clear example, because this was never the debate or a topic of debate or argument when it came
Brother's
to
going on a
between
monologue.
Biden and Trump.
And also, if you want to talk about voting, you do realize that they're trying to put in place that in order to vote, your last name has to match the last name on your birth certificate. And people think that that's a direct attack on trans people. And yes, of course it is. But you know who else it attacks? Married women.
They're
They
not
are
really
trying to only
combating
allow
the
men
argument,
to vote.
which I was kind of looking for, and it's kind of getting
Like,
long.
what
I don't
don't
want to
you
draw it
get?
out. They're going on
The
monologues.
patriarchy right
I'll
now,
probably post this one as the
all
full
of
video,
it,
so you guys could just
every
get a
single
glimpse
bit of
of
it
like the
is under
monologue. They'll
attack,
mute you,
right?
go on a
Because people are
monologue. If
waking
you
up to the
rebuttal and they don't
fact
agree, they'll
that
mute
we
you, go on a
don't have
monologue.
equal rights.
And if you
They
keep
threw us
unmuting
all a
yourself to
bone
combat it,
and said, let that
because
be
they're
enough.
muting you,
We gave them the right to
they will
vote.
kick
Let
you
that be
out.
enough.
So you have to be very patient.
But male patriarchy is still alive and well. Okay, and we don't even need to look at just America. We can look at the rest of the world as well.
This is
There's
another
literally
monologue.
women in
Y'all are not even
Afghanistan
combating.
that can't speak. Okay, and to me that's a problem. So maybe you don't think it's a problem because you're not in Afghanistan and you're not a woman, but I would think that's a problem.
Well, even if we wanted to give women in Afghanistan rights, who would have to do that?
Exactly, that's male privilege.
That's not a privilege to have to go
Bingo.
fight for somebody else's
Keep
rights.
come
That's
on,
not a
keep
privilege.
talking. Maybe
In
you'll
what
actually
reality
make
is
your
it a
own
privilege
point.
to go to war?
You literally just said to me, who would have to give that to them? Obviously, men would have to give it to them because men are the ones that took that right away from them. So therefore, that is still male privilege.
Yeah, because men have the monopoly on force, but it's still not a privilege to have to go fight in a war in order
The
to give somebody
privilege,
else rights.
I know,
Poor
we
man.
just
Poor
proved your
man.
own. Oh my Jesus.
You're okay. You're having You're having this thing called cognitive dissonance.
I think so.
And you're misunderstanding. If you just admitted that men have a monopoly on force, having a monopoly on force is implicit privilege. Just because when you expand upon that menu of privileges of what comes with that privilege, acting like going to war all of a sudden is now a disadvantage is a little delusional, because the only reason you are a valid candidate to go to war is because of the implicit monopoly on force that are given to men biologically and culturally.
So just to be clear, so I
Are
don't
you
straw man
misunderstanding
you.
that disconnect?
So I don't straw man you, just to be clear. So are you saying that the inherent privilege that men have in the world is that we're stronger than women?
If you want to melt it down to the bare bones of everything, objectively, yes. Men
Okay. Well then, yeah, I agree with you on that. But you're talking. I thought you were talking about government rights, privileges in the government, legal
That is
legal
also a part of
privileges,
it, because
which we
by
give
your
women
own
advantages
admission,
because we are more
by
powerful.
your
That's what we
own
choose to do.
admission, you said
It's a part of the
that
benevolent
who is going to give you
patriarchy.
that